Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Git Good at OpenRCT2. In this episode I will show you how to make a transfer track. Now what is a transfer track? A transfer track is a piece of track that's used to guide roller coasters onto a storage track, or to get roller coaster trains from a storage track onto the main track. So for example, if you have a roller coaster that has 4 trains, then usually on days when it's not crowded or at the beginning or end of the day, it usually only operates with 1 or 2 trains, and then the other trains are stored on the storage track. It's not something you'll have to build on every coaster in OpenRCT2. It's just something you can do to add an extra layer of realism on your coasters. I typically always make a transfer track on my coasters nowadays, but that's just because I like to build my coasters in sort of a realistic way. Now, how is a transfer track made? Well, there's just many ways to do it. On some coasters there's a turntable that rotates a train and guides it onto a track that way. On some coasters there's a sliding track. On some other coasters there's a switch in the track. On some coasters there's an S-bend that is slid into the track. In this video I will just show you some ways to make a transfer track. So I will now quickly build the station and the final brake run of a coaster, and then I'll show you some ways to make a transfer track. But like I just said, there's just many ways to do it, so it's a fun thing to get creative with. Alright, here we have our roller coaster. I just made the station a part of the lift hill and a part of the end section. I didn't feel like making a complete layout, and I also didn't make a station building. Anyway, the transfer track is usually right behind the station. Sometimes it's incorporated in the brake track. Sometimes it's right in front or behind the brake track. But for this first example, I will include it in the brake track. Now, for the first example, I will show you how to do a sliding track, where the train would arrive here at this brake section. It would be stopped here on the brake, and then the complete section with the train on top will slide to the right or to the left, where the train can then be guided onto a storage track. The amount of storage tracks should be equal to the amount of trains you have. Or maybe, for example, if you have 3 trains, you could have 1 train left in the station overnight, while 2 others will be on storage tracks. But yeah, that's up to you. Like I said, you can get creative with these. It's up to you how you do it. Alright, for the storage track, for convenience, I will just make a new coaster. Now you should make your storage track at least the same length as your station, or well, it should be able to hold a train. So yeah, I also made the brake section the same length as the station for that reason. So here's my first storage track. I will just copy and paste this piece to make 2 other storage tracks. Alright, let's make it the same color as the original, right? Alright, now we need to make it look like this track can slide. The first thing you should do is remove the original supports under the track that has to slide, or else it would not be able to slide if it was attached to the ground there. Now we need to make some rails for the track to slide on. Now for that I'll disable clearance checks And with the steeplechase, I will just build a rail right under it. I will copy these track pieces and I will build a few right next to them. Alright, now this track has a rail to slide on. Let's give it a different color. I usually make them gray or black, but you could also paint them if you want to. I think yellow could also look nice because that's also the color of the other supports. But yeah, like I said, you can get creative here. For added realism, you could also make this, put this track 1 unit higher, and then it really looks like the track above it is really on top of it. As you can see, this distance is now smaller. The reason I didn't put it at this height immediately is that if a roller coaster is at this height, come on, if a roller coaster is at this height, you cannot continue building from it. It has to be either 1 unit lower or 1 unit higher. But with the tile inspector, you can put them at this in between heights. So let's finish this last bit of the track. Alright, and there we have it, our storage track. Now, you could actually, well, of course you'll have to decorate this. You could put a building around this. I will make a little building around it later. Of course you could put extra supports under it. Let's use the yellow here. This is just one way to make it look a little bit better. Maybe you don't like this, I don't know. But this is how I often do it. You could put some catwalks, railings, other stuff. And you could also put some catwalks right next to here. Maybe even some supports under it that would slide with the track. Something like this. But yeah, get creative here. It doesn't actually have to work, of course. It just should look like it could possibly work. Alright. Well, you could actually put trains on the storage track. For that, you'll need to make a station on the far end. Let's make a... Actually, we'll need to rotate the track because the trains have to be the other way around. So I built it the wrong way around. So let's copy this track piece. I'll paste it here and rotate it. And on the end piece, we'll put a station. Well, clearance checks are disabled, so I can just build the station and the exit on the same tile. We'll hide the station. Let's give the trains some cool colors. Alright. We'll want the train to be a bit longer. I don't know how long this train would be. 8 cars. Let's stick to that. Disable vehicle limits and we'll make it 8 cars. 1 train. And I'll pause the game. Put in test mode and close it immediately. Unpause. And now we have a train here on the storage track. Now, if you want to hide this little station piece, you can just copy this track piece. We'll hide the station piece with the corrupt element, and we paste the track piece here, and we now have a hidden station here. and a train that's waiting on the storage track. Now we could make a building around this. I will now just quickly make a simple building. It won't look very nice probably, but it's just for demonstration purposes. So quickly make some walls, put a little roof on it, and then we'll make some garage doors in front of it. I will also put some supports under it. You could also extend these supports all the way to the floor. Like I said, this will probably not be a very nice building, but it's just a demonstration. Okay, and I'll make a little roof over it. Sometimes these storage buildings are cleverly hidden in with scenery, or they have been made pretty. On more generic coasters, they're often just they're often not really inside, but when you can see them, they're often just really just really generic. Okay, let's. I often like to keep one door open, just to make it, just so people can see the extra train that would be in the storage track. All right, let's finish up this building. All right, it's not a very pretty building, but I think it should get the point across how to make this. Let's put some poles here, and now it looks like you have 3 garage doors here for these storage tracks. Anyway, that's the first example of how to make a transfer track with a storage track right next to it. Alright, I will now show you another example, something you'll also find quite often on the coaster. For this example I'll use a Git coaster, and I will now just build the beginning and end of a roller coaster. Alright, here I have made a Git coaster, and sometimes on coasters it's not the entire brake section that slides. Sometimes it's actually, there's a switch track, so there's a little S-bend that can slide into the track, which then guides a train onto a storage track. So I'll make a storage track here. Actually, I'll first make an S-bend, and I will take this track piece and I'll make the storage track right next to the brake section. But you could, for example, also make a curve and then put it in a building right over here, whatever you prefer. Now obviously the transfer track isn't going to work like this, so we'll take these track pieces of the S-bend. So here's the first track piece of the S-bend, and then I'll take the rest of the S-bend. Alright, like that. Now we can remove this part. Okay, so you can see I have divided this S-bend into 2 parts. So one part of the curve is over here and the rest is over here. Let's color it in the same color as the original track. Now here it's not the entire brake section that slides, but just only this S-bend part. And for it to slide, the original track will have to slide one tile into this direction, so the rail also has to extend into this direction. So again, we'll make a steeplechase. You can also use, for example, a wild mouse track or something similar for this. Now, don't forget to hide the original supports, because with original supports the track would not be able to slide. Let's give it some other colors. You could make it green just to make it blend in a bit. And there we have it. We now have a storage track for our coaster, and we have a little track here on a little S-bend that can slide, and when the track has moved, there will be an S-bend from the station onto this storage track. So this is how it's done on many coasters where the amount of space is limited. Or it's just more simple than making a big chunk of coaster track move. And again, you could make a building around this section in the same way. Now, when you want to have more storage tracks, you probably need to come up with something a little bit more. Well, it'll probably get a little bit more complicated, because you'll have to make switch tracks that allow you to reach the other tracks as well. So maybe you could even have a third track element that could slide into place, so it could reach the third track. But yeah, again, that's up to you to solve. Now, like I said, you could also make a turn here in the track and then put a little building here, or put it somewhere else. That's really up to how creative you are. Now, if you have an inverted coaster, it's done a little bit differently. Obviously, the rails will not be under the track, but the rails will be on top of the track, and the track would be able to slide on it to the left or to the right. So let's first make a storage track. You could make it to the front or to the back. I now actually made a little curve before the station. Yeah, it's just well, it's obviously different in every situation. So let's make some storage tracks here. Let's make them the same color. Actually, this is just a default color. Let's turn it into something bright. Alright, I like the colors of that. And again, usually for inverts, well, for B&M inverts at least, we'll want to build the track, a rail for it to slide on right above the track. Well, obviously you cannot have the supports for the steeplechase here, because else the track would not be able to move, so you'll have to hide those. And when that's done, you'll have to make some sort of framework to actually support this this transfer track. I'll actually just extend the steeplechase track one in each direction, and then you could make some scenery or some track texture just to support this track. Actually, let's use the inverted impulse coaster. Now this is just something I'm now doing very quickly. There's nicer ways to do this. And let's do another one here. There, this is just a simple way of doing it. I could also make some vertical inverted impulse coaster track here. But yeah, I now just quickly made a simple frame for this rail to rest on. If I had to make this in one of my own parks, I would probably spend some more time on it. But now, of course, this is just for demonstration purposes. But here we have it. Here's a rail which this track would be able to slide on, and then the trains would be able to be guided onto this storage track. So yeah, that's how to do it for an inverted coaster. But of course, if you find your own inventive way of doing it, you should go ahead and do it. Now, some coasters also have even have an elevator track. So, for example, you could make the storage track right under here, and you could make a lift, and then that lift would be able to guide the coaster train onto the storage track. It's rare, but some coasters where space was limited actually have an elevator system. Alright, that was it for this video. I hope the video is useful for you. I hope you learned a thing or two about transfer tracks. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask them here in the comments. You can also join my Discord server, the link is in the description, and there me or the other members of the Discord will be happy to help you with any questions you have about transfer tracks. Alright, that was it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again in the next one. See you later.